A Medal of Honor was placed inside the soldier's coffin. The family wasn't supposed to keep it. This is the story of the brave soldier who received the highest honor after he gave up his life for the sake of his comrades. His parents were immensely proud of their son, but they knew that the medal wasn't for them. It belonged with him, not us. The young man had served his country with honor and distinction. He had put his life on the line countless times and had always come out on top. But this time it would be different. On a fateful day, he and his unit were in the middle of a fierce battle when he made the ultimate sacrifice. He saved the lives of his comrades at the cost of his own. When the news of his death reached his parents, they were heartbroken. But they knew that their son had died a hero. When the military officials arrived at their doorstep to inform them about their son's bravery and award him the Medal of Honor, they were shocked. Their son had been killed in action, but he had saved the lives of many. They knew that their son was a hero, but they never imagined that he would receive the highest award for his bravery. As they stood there listening to the official speak about their son's heroism, they couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Their son had given his life to save others, and now he would be honored with the Medal of Honor, the highest award for bravery in the United States. When the time came for them to accept the medal on their son's behalf, they knew that it wasn't for them. It belonged with him, not us. They refused to accept the medal, insisting that it should be buried with their son. This touched the hearts of everyone present. The parents knew that their son had given his all for his country, and he deserved to have the medal with him in death, as he had in life. After a solemn ceremony, the body of the brave soldier was laid to rest in a cemetery with full military honors. As the coffin was lowered into the grave, the parents stood silently, their heads bowed in respect. They knew that their son was finally at peace and that his sacrifice would never be forgotten. Before the burial, the parents requested that the Medal of Honor be placed in their son's chest pocket so that it could rest with him. This request was granted, and the medal was carefully placed in the correct pocket of the uniform, ensuring that it would stay in place during the burial. The parents wanted their son to be buried with all the honors and respect that he had earned. Once the coffin was lowered into the grave, the chaplain began the burial ritual. He spoke of the soldier's bravery and sacrifice, and he offered words of comfort to the grieving parents. The parents listened intently, tears streaming down their faces. They were heartbroken at the loss of their son, but they were also proud of the hero he had become. As the chaplain continued the burial ritual, the soldiers began to fill in the grave. With each shovel full of dirt, the parents felt like a part of their son was being buried. They knew that this was the final goodbye, but they also knew that their son would live on in the hearts and minds of those who loved him. After the grave was filled and the headstone was in place, the chaplain offered a final prayer. He asked God to bless the soldier and to give his parents the strength they needed to go on. The parents bowed their heads and prayed for their son and for themselves. They knew that they would never forget him, and they were grateful for the love and support of the community. As the crowd began to disperse, the parents remained at the gravesite. They stood there for a long time, just taking in They looked at the fresh flowers on the grave and the flag that was flying proudly in the wind. They also noticed a small group of soldiers standing at attention nearby. As the sun began to set, the parents knew it was time to go. They had stayed long enough, and it was time to let the soldiers do their job. With heavy hearts, they turned to leave. But before they could take a single step, they heard a commotion in the distance. They turned around and saw a large group of people running towards the cemetery. The parents were shocked and confused, but they soon realized what was happening. The soldiers had fired their rifles into the air, and the sound had attracted people from all over the town. As more and more people arrived, the parents knew that they had to get out of there. They didn't want to be the center of attention, and they didn't want to burden anyone with their grief. So they quietly slipped away from the cemetery, hoping to find some solace in the solitude of their home. At home, the parents tried to make sense of what had happened. They thought about their son and the heroic actions that had led to him receiving the Medal of Honor. They were proud of him, but they also felt a deep sense of loss. They knew that they would never see him again, and the reality of that fact was heartbreaking. As the days went by, the parents began to receive condolences from friends and neighbors. Many people were shocked by the bravery of their son, and they wanted to express their admiration and respect. The parents appreciated the support, but they also felt a sense of guilt. They knew that their son had sacrificed his life to save others, and they couldn't help but wonder if they had done something wrong in raising him. Despite the guilt and the grief, the parents knew that they had raised their son well. They had taught him the values of courage, compassion, and selflessness, and he had embodied those values in his actions. They knew that their son was a hero, and that his memory would live on in the hearts of those who loved him. One day, the parents decided to visit the gravesite of their son. They wanted to pay their respects and to see how the area had been maintained. When they arrived at the cemetery, they were shocked by what they saw. Hundreds of people had gathered there, and the gravesite was covered in flowers and flags. As they stood there taking in the scene, the parents realized that their son had touched the hearts of so many people. They knew that he was loved and that his sacrifice would never be forgotten. From that day forward, the parents became regulars at the cemetery. They would visit the gravesite every week to pay their respects and to maintain the area. They knew that it was their duty to honor the memory of their son, and they took that responsibility seriously. One day, a reporter from a local newspaper arrived at the cemetery to write a story about the parents of the Medal of Honor recipient. He wanted to learn about their experience and to see how they had coped with the loss of their son. When the reporter interviewed the parents, they were hesitant at first. They didn't want to draw attention to themselves, but they knew that sharing their story could help others. They agreed to the interview, and the reporter began asking questions. As the interview progressed, the parents opened up to the reporter. They told him about the bravery of their son and the pride they felt when he received the Medal of Honor. They also shared the guilt and grief they had experienced and how they had coped with the loss. Once the interview was over, the reporter wrote a story about the parents and their experience. He included quotes from the interview, and he told the story with sensitivity and respect. When the article was published, it quickly went viral. People from all over the country read the story and were moved by the bravery of the soldier and the sacrifice of his parents. The parents were shocked by the response to the article. They never expected it to go viral, and they were surprised by the attention they were receiving. However, they were also happy that their story was helping others. They knew that their son would have wanted them to share their story and to help others cope with their own losses. Inspired by the parents, other Gold Star families began sharing their stories as well. People started to realize that it was okay to talk about their loved ones who had died, and that it was important to honor their memory. The parents were proud to be a part of this movement, and they continued to share their story whenever they could. The parents knew that their son had died a hero and that his sacrifice would never be forgotten. They were proud of him, and they knew that he would want them to move on and live their lives to the fullest. They took this to heart, and they began to focus on the positive aspects of their lives. They spent time with friends and family, traveled and volunteered in their community. Years went by and the parents grew old, but they never forgot their son or the sacrifice he had made. They continued to visit his gravesite every week, and they continued to share their story to help others. One day, the parents passed away. They had lived long and fulfilling lives, but they knew that they would be reunited with their son in death, as they had been in life. When they died, they were buried next to their son in the same cemetery. Their gravesites were close together, and the headstones were engraved with the Medal of Honor emblem. As the years went by, visitors to the cemetery began to notice the three gravesites. They would stand silently at the graves and salute the Medal of Honor recipient. It was a silent tribute to a hero and his parents who had made the ultimate sacrifice for their country and for each other. And that is the story of the medal buried with him. This is an incredible story of bravery, sacrifice, and love. What did you think about it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.